I'm Susan Kennard and I'm an EFT practitioner and trainer, and I started off my life as a psychologist and a psychotherapist and worked in child protection for approximately 10-12 years, working on high level drugs, alcohol, domestic abuse, working with children and families and helping them understand how they can move forward in their life. That's how I started.
And you've had your team upstairs helping you along the way. Tell us a bit about that.
The
please.
team upstairs have probably always been there, but around my 20s, I think I was 22, 23, which is 20 years ago now really, more than 20 years ago, I had an experience where an ex-boyfriend of mine, who also was a friend, took his life, and about 3 or 4 months later I felt the sense that he was actually with me, and I'd never experienced anything like that before. And this is something that I talked about at the conference last year, and I talk about when I speak to people about my journey. And after that experience, I realised that life was eternal and that actually we could communicate from the other side. And even though I kind of knew that there was something else, I wasn't absolutely sure, and I hadn't really thought about it too much. And over that time, I started to connect more deeply with who I was, and I realised that I had the ability to connect with spirit. I didn't realise where it was going to take me, and I resisted it for a very, very long time. But it is part of who I am, a part of who everybody is, and therefore it's something that I love to talk about now.
Thank you. And obviously EFT has become a tool you use. How did you come to find EFT? And you call it a miraculous tool. So
I do call it a miraculous tool because obviously as a psychologist I have those traditional qualifications, but using EFT or energy techniques, I feel that we go to a much deeper level. We're accessing that part of the brain that we never really access in any other way. I always say, and people know me for saying, you can talk to the cows come home, but actually when you actually clear the energy from your energy field deep within the cell, you are actually clearing that part of the brain, the unconscious processing, that isn't even yours usually. It's usually come from your parents or when you were growing in the womb, and the experience that you have a perception of belief about the world that you can't really tap into or access without energy, psychology or emotional freedom technique or hypnosis, the subliminal type where you listen to it throughout the night and you're actually just listening and it goes into your brain and changes the pathways and your thoughts and your belief systems. But essentially, yes, EFT for me has been a miraculous tool, not only for myself on my own journey, but when you watch people change in front of you and the light goes on, that is incredible.
So along with EFT and other techniques that you use, you've created a new course. Please could you tell us about your new course?
Yes, Get into the Heart and Soul of Relationships. I previously wrote Get into the Heart and Soul of PTSD because my work with veterans led me to do research that I didn't even mean to do, but I noticed patterns within my research showing that early childhood experiences with every single one of my veterans had happened and led them then to be predisposed to PTSD later on, post-traumatic stress, and so with serious trauma. So I noticed that, and then as time went on I realised that getting to the heart and soul of relationships is really who we are. We are a relationship, not only to ourselves but to the universe, and of course to others as well. And I went on Sharon King's Birth Trauma Matrix Birth Reimprinting course earlier this year, and it put the piece in the puzzle for me of the information that I knew about early experiences with conception, pregnancy and birth, and I'd worked a lot with it in past lives too, but I hadn't actually put that piece of the puzzle into my work. So I've developed a course where we will be working with using energy and clearing those early perceptions of belief that lead to us making decisions about our own lives and others, and decisions about our career and our success, and accessing that 95% I keep talking about that we can't normally access. What I also believe, and this is my intention really, is that I believe we can clear the predisposed behaviour to dis-ease meaning cancer or any other serious traumatic diseases that people are manifesting at a rate of knots at the moment. And I believe that if we can clear those early emotions that were born within us while we were growing, the cortex in the brain, while we were growing in our heart, how our heart's affected, we can actually prevent disease and therefore empower people much more.
So what do you hope people will primarily gain from doing the course?
It's really for professionals. It's for people that have got experience in emotional freedom technique. Quite a lot of people coming on it are people that I've trained in the Master Practitioner training. And it's really extending the understanding to working deeply with energy and not doing that much tapping really. It's really just to work with your client and use colour. I developed colour energy clearing a year ago or so, and that is something that I teach. I also teach lots of other techniques of mine, the war technique and healing hearts and time travelling, which I'll be talking about at the conference as well. But it takes you to a deeper level. And for me, anything that I learn, anything that I'm given from my team upstairs, because essentially that's all it is, being connected, I will then give to other people. So if I can develop a course that will help people go on and utilise these skills and raise the vibration of not only the person they're working with, but collectively the planet, that's my intention.
And do you have any courses coming up after this course?
I have one in my front part of my brain, my 5%, and I'm sure my team upstairs have a lot of it from the other part of my brain, which I'll access as soon as I start writing it. But getting to the heart and soul of working with children is a passion of mine, because there are a lot of practitioners I've spoken to over the years that have said, well, I don't really want to work with children because I'm afraid. And I've worked with children a lot of my career, for probably 15, 20 years of my career, probably a bit more even. And if we can start working with children, they are our next generation, and they're so quick to clear their energy. So it's such a beautiful experience to work with children, and so easy, that if we can help people understand how to work with them in a safe way and not feel scared, then perfect.
You mentioned the conference. Obviously, you presented at the last year's AMT conference. How did that go for you? How did you find presenting?
I loved it. I was excited because I only got invited a few weeks before the actual conference was running. So in about 3 weeks I had to put together a presentation. But I didn't use any tools. I just spoke, and I found it exhilarating and exciting, and I just loved talking about the work that I was doing and the research that I'd done and how I could help other people understand about post-traumatic stress.
Do you find that you're a bit of an ambassador for energy, and you're in the media, you've been on Lorraine Kelly, you're in magazines?
Yes.
Is that one of your sort of missions in life, is to talk about these things as much as you can? And
well, I became a member of Toastmasters International about 3 years ago, and it coincided with the levels of EFT that I was going to the advanced levels. And what I feel is that when I'm standing on stage or I'm being interviewed for a magazine or on television, I'm completely in my element, and I feel that what I'm probably meant to do is be the voice for others, and so therefore the voice for EFT. And if I can do that, brilliant. I find it exciting, it's good fun for me, I don't feel like I'm working, so yeah, great.
do you find that kind of energy healing, energy techniques are becoming more accepted by the general public, that people are being more open to learning these techniques?
I think what I've found is that when you have got some information that you can give your client, even if they don't feel that they're very open to it, if you can give them some evidence and you can say, look, imagine this part of your brain, and imagine that this belief system that you've had for so long has been affected and affecting your life throughout the whole of your life. How would it feel if we could actually access that part of the brain and release those unwanted emotions that have led you to where you are today? So to me, if you can explain to somebody that they can change, that it's not a quick fix, that it's an evolvement of who they are, and the more connected they are to themselves, to their inner being, the better their life will be. Then to me, I've never had anybody that's walked out, and I've never had anybody that said that's a load of rubbish. whilst I'm working with them. They might have said it before and people still continue to, and that's fine. That's where they are in their process of their journey. But once people start to understand that they feel better and they start to see that differences in their life with their friendships, with their relationships, and they start to feel themselves, they lose weight, they start to look younger, they realise that there is something in it. And I think I really like the fact that I come from a traditional background, and I think that's really helped me with the media, because being filmed for the BBC in November last year, that comes out this year, and that's a documentary on Harley Street, and they actually came to film me in Harley Street doing the work that I do. So that's absolutely amazing for the UK, but also amazing for the layperson to sit in their lounge and watch something and actually learn that they can also be releasing their emotions that stop them from fully standing in their power. So that's absolutely brilliant. And I think that we don't have to be psychologists, absolutely not. We can be any kind of background, but I think from my perspective, that is how I've got my foot in the door. The fact that I trained as a psychologist, and that's how I was interviewed by the Daily Mail, why I was on Lorraine Kelly, and why I was approached in Harley Street for Sky TV 2 years ago, and then the BBC, and now even more events that are coming up with, you know, magazines that I've been interviewed this year with. There's actually a journalist doing a feature on getting to the heart and soul of relationships in July the 20th when I run it, so it actually will be featured and probably filmed as well. So that's quite exciting. But you don't have to be a psychologist, because it's not about psychology, but I think from my perspective it allowed me to be the voice for EFT.
Excellent. Who is your hero? Who's greatly influenced you in the kind of alternative health industry? I
think Louise Hay influenced me pretty much from when I was in my 20s. I always thought that it was dis-ease in the mind, dis-ease in the body, but now Bruce Lipton has taken us to a much deeper level, where he explains about the cell, the biology of the cell, and therefore the biology of belief. So what happens within our cells, especially within our brain, really informs what happens in our environment. Mm-hmm. So what we're creating, how successful we are within our relationships and so on. And also that, you know, the medical model, we need the medical model so much, but we also need to evolve the medical model. And with his work, with his 47 years of research on, you know, petri dishes to do with dissecting the cells and understanding really what affects our cells, drugs is certainly not the answer. It is part of the answer for us to get to where we are today, but now we have a much better answer, which is change your environment, meaning your thought system, your belief system, and you change everything.
Is that where you see energy work progressing in the future, particularly for yourself? Is
absolutely
bringing all that together?
I feel that what's going to happen with me, with my work, although, hey, I never know, I just trust, I feel that where I'm going with it is working with cancer, and so understanding that we can actually clear those thought forms in the part of the brain that affects the body. So my passion is going to be, and I plan to work with doctors very, very closely, so that we can really work together. They've got the amazing knowledge of the body, the brain, how it all works, and we've got the amazing knowledge of how we can clear the energy field and how we can help people be empowered. And I actually do work with doctors on a personal level, and what they've said to me in their practice is the thing that's missing is the actual taking the time and speaking to their patients and understanding who they are, and they're not taught that. So that's missing within the medical field, and it's great when we get great doctors that are very aware and spiritually aware, but there aren't that many really. I think deep down they know this information, but because they've been trained in a certain way, they've been, dare I say it, indoctrinated into this particular way of thinking, which is that the mind is separate from the body. And Bruce Lipton talks about this as well, is that, you know, from Newtonian days, it was separate, it was believed to be separate, but actually we're totally integrated. We are mind, body and spirit, and there's nothing else. That's who we are. This body is our vehicle to get us where we need to go and to create anything we want in our life, change anything we want in our life, and essentially stop moaning about it and just have fun and get on with it, because that's how my life is now.
Excellent. And finally, obviously you're very busy. You have practices on the South Coast and in Harley Street, appearing on TV. Obviously you're a therapist. What do you do when you have a bit of Susan time?
I've got 2 children and they're very young, so I spend a lot of time with my children. And what I really like is I've created a business so that I can spend as much time as I can with my children, because they're the ones that are my most important part of my life. I go to the gym, I spend time in the steam room, in the jacuzzi, I do nice things for myself. I actually really don't feel that I'm lacking in anything, and I may be really, really busy, but they always say ask a busy woman, don't they, to do something, and you usually get it done. But I actually don't feel that I need any space or any time, and I think that comes from clearing your energy field and really standing in your power, being empowered as a person, because you actually don't feel that anything's lacking. Does that make sense to you? Mm-hmm. And so when you're in that place of creating whatever you choose to create and doing whatever you choose to do without any guilt, without any feelings of having to justify anything, you're totally free. So there's no need really to say I've got to have a massive break, because what you do is something that is part of who you are. You absolutely love it. And every EFT practitioner that I've trained has said, wow, you know, I love this, and it's part of who they are. And so there's not really any need to take a break, if you know what I mean.
An escape.
Yeah, escape, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, Susan.
You're welcome.